Good evening. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, June 18th, our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting being done via the computer, the virtual meeting requirements as we have been doing for the last few times. I thank you all for attending, and I ask if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get into the next section, I would just like to make a quick public statement. I want to apologize for my use of the insensitive words to express my views of last month. I realize it's created a bunch of chatter. And again, I apologize for my use of words. With that, we have our public comment section. I don't know if we have anybody out there who is there for public comment.
Dan, I just want to say thank you. That's a good thing you did.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Dan,
Yeah.
Hello?
Dan Mellichter. I just
Yes,
wanted
sir.
to know when you would like me to talk about the project.
If it's not on the agenda, we'll bring it up since it's old business.
Okay,
We'll bring it up under old business. And that's the lead remediation project at Hebron.
okay.
Okay, I think our next thing is Andy.
Yes, if we have no other public comment, we do not have anybody at this meeting for good to know. So if that's okay, we'll move right into the town manager's report.
Yes, please.
Hi, Mark. Okay, so this is just an overview of what we've been concentrating on. I was on vacation the week prior, but continue to stay in touch. So as everybody's probably aware, we're trying to finalize the audit. We've been in constant contact, and we think we see a light at the end of the tunnel. So we're almost there. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I attended the Board of Finance meeting earlier this week. That went well. You'll see later on in this meeting that they did give a blessing to move forward with Bloom Shapiro as our auditors. So hopefully the Board of Selectmen can approve that as well. One of the items I just want to make the Board of Selectmen aware of that did come up. One of my MOs is, even though the town manager has certain parameters financially, I still like to keep everybody abreast. So due to this COVID-19, one of the issues that was challenging is down at the Public Works facility. And due to the lack of office space, we're looking to purchase out of this year's winter surplus, possibly a shed from either Clotter Farms or one of those sites. We would put that out in front of the office. We would have IT put in there and a ductless split air conditioner heat pump, and we would use this as an out office. So they approved. I really don't need approvals with the amount of money. It's not to exceed $13,000, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware, both Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. Once again, the office arrangements for both the Public Works and the administrative assistant and the actual Public Works foreman, there's no way to really comply. The administrative assistant has been working remotely, but with us planning to move forward and open up on July 6th, it's something that we would need to put in place and we think it's going to be in use for quite a long time. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. So if there's any questions regarding that, I'll take questions.
Andy, would you get it insulated? Andy?
So Mark, we plan when we get it, we're going to insulate it and sheetrock it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's Peter Casper. May I ask a question?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Andy, when you guys researched that, because I was at the Board of Finance meeting as well and heard the detail, what did you look at larger structures? Because it would think maybe the incremental cost to bump it out a little bit. I just was thinking about that, knowing that we have some long-term issues with space there that will extend beyond the COVID situation, the need to create safety in the short term. I was just curious if you looked at even a larger structure and the incremental cost of that, was that worth considering?
I'm not sure, Peter. This was a recommendation from the Public Works Director. They did all the research and submitted the data that they were looking for. They felt, I think, that this size shed was sufficient. And I think maybe the area where they're going to put it might have some space constraints as well. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
that's the best I can do with that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Dan Larson, if I may, Peter, I was asked actually to look at it also, you know, for doing the town electrical.
Okay,
Where they're trying to put it, it's going to be inside the fence, but if they had much larger a structure, it would protrude out into the gate area of the entryway. And then the other thing is, with the state trying to maintain the distance between, you know, people and workstations and that kind of stuff, it would have ended up with a larger building that still would have only been able to have, you know, the one desk, the one worker in it, you know, without going immensely larger.
okay, that's good. That's helpful. Thank you. It just seemed like maybe an opportunity, but I don't know the space very well, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, where they're planning is, if you know where the Kevin's office is, they're planning on it being out there by the fence, you know, in the fenced-in area between the gate and it's going to get nestled in so that you can still get to the door that gets you into the public works office area, if you will. So I mean, there's just not a lot of space.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.
And any other questions on the shed? Okay, hearing none. So the town manager's office, myself, we continue to work on we have some union issues that we're working on, and then we're also trying to finalize a contract with the supervisors that's now been put back on an agenda. It's been stalled due to the pandemic. So that's starting to take up a little bit of time. We had another reopening meeting for all town buildings today, which went very well. We're well on our way. We're just finalizing a few details, but I think 90% of those are in place. And I'll get into, it's on the agenda, so I don't want to, I was going to bring it up a little bit more, John, later, if that's okay.
Okay.
As you'll see, we've been working with the new auditing firm. We got a proposal. We've been negotiating with them, so something's been presented to us as a proposal. So hopefully that'll get approved tonight, and then we will enter into a contract, hopefully with them, and hopefully get back to some more normalcy when it comes to the town's audit. Right, Elaine?
I'm certainly praying for it.
Okay. I attended the RAM graduation. That went very well. It was well organized. It seemed that the families and the parents that I spoke with were very happy. The administration was happy, and the Lions were very happy to be able to help out. So I think we were lucky to have that type of facility, and the way it was done kind of didn't take away from an actual graduation So So Donna, take note. I got information from Rich Calarco this afternoon that due to the new executive orders being lifted, the playscapes are going to be open with signage, and the skateboard park is also going to be open. Soccer has started, and baseball will start next week. So we've been kind of working with those entities and making sure they have their safety plans in place and are going to meet the requirements that are in place, and they did a good job, and we've approved those to move forward. So that's what we've been working on. That's what's been taking up most of our time. And then, like as John, I think John was going to state, I have a list of things that on the agenda when we get into the reopening, I'll go through the whole list of what we're doing. So that's it for the town manager report for now.
Okay. What's our next item on the agenda?
Next is old business. It's the town of Hebron emergency declaration.
Can Mel go so we can leave? Mel, do you want to go and get it over with?
No, go ahead. I'll hang on till the end. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, but thanks for the consideration.
I was gonna say, we're going to only a couple of items. Okay.
So it was brought up at the last meeting to look into the town of Hebron's emergency declaration on Friday, March 13, 2020, effective at 12 noon. The town manager issued an emergency declaration in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The selectmen may wish to discuss whether to continue or terminate the emergency declaration. And we supplied you with the charter. And then I sent this to Ken Slater, who's our town attorney. And it was my thoughts at the same time. One of the major concerns or one of the reasons to have this in place is to not interrupt possible reimbursement or funding from FEMA. You have to be aligned with the state. But I did send out Ken's response to the Board of Selectmen. But for the people that don't have that, I can put that, Donna, we can put that up and I can read it. It's just a quick statement. So this is from attorney.
We'll get
Yeah,
it.
okay. This is from Attorney Halloran and Sage. And I put the question to him whether we should keep this intact or not. And he wrote back, the governor's state of emergency remains in place statewide, and with the uncertainty surrounding possible rebounds and virus spread after potential reopening authorized by the governor, I believe that it would be unwise to lift the order in Hebron. It gives you the authority to react quickly to unexpected. So we enacted, as I read earlier, we enacted our town's emergency declaration was effective March 13th, 2020. And I have that as well if somebody wants to see that, or I can read it.
I think we all know what it is.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, John.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll follow.
No, I was just going to say, Dan Larson, I was just going to say that I see no reason at this time to rush into closing out this emergency declaration. I would be much happier to see what happens the next couple or 3 weeks as things start opening up, to see if we get that rebound like they're getting in other states. I'm happy enough at this point to let this ride and see just how things kind of shake out. It's things may be fine, but things may not. And this way, by keeping this declaration active, allows for a much quicker response if we have to go back and step back. That's kind of my thoughts. John, I know you wanted to speak.
So I've gone over the charter wording, and it's, if we ever have another charter revision, they should tighten it up because it's very convoluted. Is it the board's understanding that the board has jurisdiction over these, over what the town manager does, or is it carte blanche? It's still carte blanche, because my understanding of this emergency is that the writers were thinking that it would be a 1 or 2 or a week long emergency where the town manager was could be incommunicado with the Board of Selectmen, and which is not the case now. And so I'm very wary of giving up democratic control. I like democracy. Unless there is a reason, if there is, if there are decisions that are being made that where that could not be made right now, that you couldn't get concurrence immediately or in time with an emergency meeting of the Board of Selectmen, then I can see it. But I don't. I'm very wary of giving up basically, the idea of democracy and the charter, and unless it's necessary, I guess. So, I should also say, I think if this is an ordinance, the ordinance will have expired after 61 days anyways, but I don't know what it is because it really doesn't say it in the charter.
Peter or Mark?
This is Peter, Dan, maybe Andy, do you have examples where you've had to sort of institute an approach or decision-making that wouldn't have followed its normal course as you look back over the last couple of months, just to maybe provide a perspective for those that might be listening to understand where these emergency powers have given you flexibility? You mentioned, of course, the coordination with FEMA, I think, but for funds, but you have examples where you had to sort of avoid the typical protocol and then use these powers to initiate certain actions in the last couple of months, just for perspective?
What I do is I try not to use them. These are in case I do need to use them. I don't believe that I've made any executive decisions over the normal parameters the town manager already has, but it gives me the ability to do it because of the lack of the in-person meeting or actual gatherings. John's right. This is a different kind of pandemic. We normally use this, and I think when the Charter Commission or when this was drafted, it was more for blizzards or natural disasters. So this is something that's kind of a little bit different. So with that, it's pretty clear on how this is supposed to work. It's like with power outages, you can't contact people, you can't mobilize through the town. Once again, this is something different. I reached out to the town attorney. He gave his opinion. My opinion is I just wouldn't want to see it interrupt any type of FEMA reimbursement. Normally, for those types of reimbursement, you have to remain in a emergency declaration following suit with the state. So other than that, I don't believe, and it's not my policy, as I just showed you with the shed. Anything I try to do, I try to be very transparent with both Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance.
I think John makes an excellent point, but we're also in sort of uncharted territories, right, John? In the sense that the charter really didn't, probably the authors didn't necessarily anticipate that. So it's a great point of how do we sort of strengthen that charter going forward to address what, again, might repeat itself pretty quickly. It could come back in a few months to the point where we have to initiate some things that we can't anticipate. So I don't know, is it possible to make an amendment to the charter? Andy, I don't know who I would ask that question to, but because there's a gap here that needs to be closed.
We would have to open up the charter again. And I just think we put this on the list for the next time we do that. I don't think it's something that we would reassemble a charter commission just for this one item at this time.
Okay, so
Peter, it's-
Dan, if you're asking for my opinion, I would follow the opinion of the town attorney, at least until we have more information. But to take John's comments, that we should just be kind of wary of the uncharted territory in which we sit. But at this point, I would support the town attorney's recommendation.
Can I just say about I'm bothered by the town attorney's opinion because it's not a legal opinion. It's not based on law. It's just an opinion that it's a wise thing to do. And so I was bothered by that. I was bothered by the fact that there was no law in it. There was nothing. He didn't go to the charter. He didn't go to. It was not a legal opinion. I don't know if we're paying him legal fees for this, but it's everybody can have an opinion. It could be wise or not wise. Now I'm concerned if it is true, we won't be reimbursed for FEMA funds. That's something you could ask the town attorney, but he doesn't say anything about that. He just says, what he says, it gives you the authority to react quickly to the unexpected. Well, that's, democracy is inconvenient by definition because you have to get consensus. But I like democracy and I like this charter and I want to protect the charter. And unless there's a damn good reason for being in an emergency, I want to get out of the emergency. So, like I said, if there is an issue with FEMA funds and reimbursement, then make the case. I guess that's what I would say.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Mark
please.
Rivera? In the unlikely event that Andy did something egregious, we could just rescind this and he would no longer have the power and it would come back to us. I don't see any time frame every time we talk about this. It's open-ended. So we could easily rescind this at the next meeting if we felt that Andy exceeded something that we felt was beyond the bounds of his power. And, I agree with you, John. But if it is true that it would affect us from getting funds, that certainly is a reason to stay in the emergency declaration. I wonder who can answer that. Andy, do you know that for a fact?
The reason that I'm suggesting, and maybe, and I can't speak for the town attorney, is that we don't know is one of the reasons that we think we should, by staying in here, there's no chance of not getting that. Past practice has always been, that was the criteria. You had to have, be in a state of emergency in order to comply with the FEMA guidelines. So once again, this is something different, this pandemic. So I don't want to misspeak. We're on the side of caution, but I work for the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. Whatever you guys decide, I'll follow.
Do you know if there's other towns that are out of their states of emergency in Connecticut? Anybody know that?
I do not know that.
John, it's Mark. Hey, due to the temporary nature of an emergency declaration, we could just rescind it if we thought something became so uncomfortable for us. It's open-ended. I don't see any that we have to be in it for a certain amount of time once we say we've declared it.
Let me ask, what is everybody's understanding of it? Is this giving the town manager unfettered powers, or is it just for specific action?
If I may, I think I should read it. Is that okay, John? It spells it out.
Go ahead.
So effective March 13th, 2020, in accordance with section 406 of the Hebron Town Charter, Andrew J. Tierney, Town Manager, with the consent of Dan Larson, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, hereby declares a public emergency due to COVID-19. The emergency declaration will allow the town manager to take steps necessary to protect the residents of the town of Hebron. The town manager shall have the power to mobilize, organize, and direct the forces of the town and to call upon forces of the federal government and the state of Connecticut and other political subdivisions. The town manager will have the authority to limit non-essential services and close or limit services provided by the town departments where necessary. So that's the only thing to answer Peter's question that I have done is enacted that last piece, like the transfer station, closing of the town hall to the public, things of that nature. But to John's point, at this point in time, where that falls under this, we do not have to be an emergency declaration. I could run that by the Board of Selectmen at this point. It's just to be clear.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear next meeting about FEMA, and I guess I'll look and see if other towns are out of their emergencies, and I'll look and see if the FEMA thing is an issue. I'm uncomfortable with it. Mark, I like democracy. I think we have a responsibility, having been elected, to maintain it. It's a value of our town. It's a value of our country. I'm not even comfortable with what the governor's doing. I'm very uncomfortable with the state of emergency and the powers that have been given to him. Just so you know, and I'm a Democrat. I'm not an objection to it, but I'm very uncomfortable with it. So let's just table this till next time, I guess.
All right, we'll keep it on the agenda, and I'll look into that. John, you want me to look into that and get a list of towns and check on the FEMA, or were you going to do that? I'm willing to do it.
Great, that'd be great. That'd be excellent.
Okay.
Dan Larson, and I have to say, John, I agree with a lot of your sentiments, and I am hoping that by our next meeting, our town hall will be open. I am hoping that within these next couple of weeks, we do not see surges in this virus coming back, because I also agree it'd be nice to close it, but I would really hope that we can get the town hall open and that things stay level and that we can go back to our former methods of serving our community.
Great.
Next, please.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item. Update on the COVID-19 long-term recovery and town departments reentry reopening. So before I go, Peter, did you want to talk to that, or you want me to start on the long-term recovery coordinator?
What, if you could start, Andy, that'd be great, just to provide the background and the idea of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Okay, so as you know, through the last couple of meetings, we're looking to appoint a long-term recovery coordinator. Should be designated for the town of Hebron. It may be appropriate to establish a committee or task force to assist and support the long-term recovery coordinator. So we've been kind of kicking this around a little bit. We've had some names put in a hat. We really didn't solicit too many people yet, but we feel it's at this point in time that we name somebody, even if it's an interim person, and then we'll spend a little bit more time taking suggestions and people that want to come possibly do this on a long-term basis. But with a little bit of prodding, I've kind of prodded Peter Casper to try to step up to the plate with our assistance from the town hall until we can really have some time to vet it and find out who's the best person in town to do this. So Peter has, I'm going to use the word graciously, accepted our offer to do this on this type of basis, and I'll let him speak for himself. But I think with what he's doing, it kind of aligns with what we're looking for, but he does have some time constraints. So in order to, we've been solicited by the state on more than one occasion now to supply him with a name. So I think if Peter's willing to accept it and the motion's made tonight, I think he would be our choice for right now.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may add some
Yes,
commentary
please.
to that? Thank you.
Yes, please.
So Peter Casper, yes, I think, and I appreciate the opportunity in thinking about this on an interim basis, and how to best sort of coordinate the next steps, thinking about the task force that we've, as a board, have already created, and the work that's being done there in coordination with reentry associated with driving business to town and supporting the businesses. There seems to be some natural correlation to some of the work that's being done, and I'll provide that in my update later in terms of the task force, what we've done so far. And so the time constraint issue is, I said, I'm happy to help and see if that role that I'm taking now and the work that's being done by the task force in conjunction with support from the town would allow for adequate representation in this capacity. But I have time constraints relative to my obligations to my regular employment, that depending on when in a given, my normal job is I travel half of the time, and we're grounded, and we'll be grounded for the coming months, most likely. And so if it looks like that I cannot act in a capacity to support this initiative based on my work requirements, my regular job requirements, that's why we talked about potentially being an interim role relative to identifying what time is really required. I think a lot of the functions that I'm working on now within the task force would allow for alignment with this position. But if the time required to provide the appropriate representation for the town in this capacity appears beyond the scope of what I can comfortably give, then I would be quick to raise my hand. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to do it in conjunction with what I'm doing. But if it looks like more time is required as we roll through this, then I will be the first to reach out to Andy and talk through that. And maybe in the meantime, we might have identified a potential more permanent solution. So I just wanted to provide that context for the board to consider.
Okay, what I'll do is I will read the motion, and then we can open it up for discussion and then vote on it. Thank you, Peter, by the way. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen appoint Peter Casper as the Town of Hebron's COVID-19 Long-Term Recovery Coordinator. Further, that a COVID-19 Recovery Committee task force be established, including all stakeholders, to assist in reopening plans and to implement the overall long-term recovery for the community. So I don't know if I need to read the rest of that. I'll look for an opinion.
No, that's the motion. You can open it for discussion.
Okay, open it for discussion, please.
Mr. Chairman,
So, go ahead.
Yes, Mark.
I unequivocally support Peter as the long-term recovery coordinator without any reservations. I'm done.
I'm not-
John?
Were you guys looking for a second before the open discussion? I didn't rush Danny.
No, we
Okay.
usually don't, so,
Just trying to make sure.
yeah. John?
Yeah, I think Peter would be great. How much is it going to cost? What are we looking at? Budget?
It's going to cost the same as I get paid to be on the Board of Selectmen.
What, they're not paying you?
Just since this is being recorded, that would be zero.
I wouldn't object to a stipend for that.
Oh, no. The only
Oh.
condition, the main condition, I will not accept $1 to do anything in support of our community and our town. I view myself as a volunteer, and I will give of my time until I don't have any, I can't give it anymore. So it's not a job. It's a volunteer job. It's a volunteer opportunity to give back to the community, anything that I do for the town. And so, yeah, I would not do this if there's a stipend assigned to it. Now, if I have to start writing checks for something, then I'll have to check with my board, which is my wife and 5 children. But if there's a lot of pocket costs for me, I would not expect and would not accept any kind of reimbursement for this in this capacity.
Well, I just, I admire it, and thank you, Peter. That's a great service, and yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to help. Everyone's doing their part. Happy to help, and I'll work closely, if approved, with Andy and his team, and we will come back clearly to the board if it looks like we need more help than I can provide. sorry, I'll also, if I find in the capacity, there are things that I can't achieve or we need a stronger resource, I will be the first to provide an update and share those comments as well, to make sure we're getting the best representation for the town.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, hearing the proposed motion, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Mark,
Aye. Mark Rivera, aye.
John,
John Collins, aye.
Dan Larson, aye. And do we
I'll
give
obviously
Peter a vote?
Peter Casper, I'll have to abstain, I would assume. Yeah, so I think, right? Isn't that appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Peter,
So,
yeah,
thank you.
I'll abstain since it impacts me directly.
thank you. Okay, and then we have 6C, which is going to be the water remediation or the lead remediation. So Mel?
Dan,
Oh, yes,
can I interrupt for a minute?
yes, please, yes.
There was a second part to the reopening that I was going to go through before we move on,
Okay,
if that's okay with the board.
yes,
Okay, so the second part is the Town Department COVID-19 Reentry Reopening Committee, created to prepare and guide the resumption. The town provided services and opening of the buildings has been meeting weekly and will continue to meet on a regular basis until no longer necessary. The committee has set Monday, July 6, 2020, as the date to open the town office buildings, Horton House and library to the public, following specific guidelines to ensure safety and visitors. So here's just a quick list of what we did or what we're proposing to do that came out of today's meeting. So we're stocked with PPE for the staff. We got the staffing schedules worked out. There still will be some rotation with staff in certain departments. The plexiglass sneeze guards are installed and still finalizing some installation, but that should be done prior to us opening. We have the floor markings. There's still a little bit more to do, but that's underway. We have the building assets and the signage that we need. We're going to limit or monitor the number of people in the buildings. That's going to be policed by the department heads. We've identified essential services and alternate methods to provide services. We're going to line up COVID-19 testing of essential employees, which mostly fire and police. We still have in place for employees taking vacations out of the state. They have to quarantine before coming back. The department reopen plans are in place for the senior center, the library, the Parks and Recreation Department, register of voters, Horton House, Public Works, and the town office building. Those are in place. Training and certification. We have the certifications for the town. That's in place. The training is currently ongoing. I think we have 1 or 2 entities left. The CERT people have been training the employees on how to use PPE and reopening policies. We have the buildings being disinfected and cleaning per the regulations. And we're going to resume the in-person meetings. Also, we'll start those on July 6th. You'll still have the option to do virtual, but if there's boards and commissions that feel they can meet in person and do it safely with the guidelines, that will be permitted. And then we have another meeting July 25th, and I'm hoping that will be finalize the plans and make sure everything's in place so we can move forward on the 6th. So at this time, I just want to thank all the department heads and everybody that worked very diligently to make this happen. I think one of the selectmen stated at a meeting or two prior that the municipalities have a lot more regulations you have to comply with before you just reopen. So I think we're going to be in good shape. And I had a lot of help from all the departments. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
No, but Dan Larson, I just want to thank literally all of our staff. It has been just trying times for all of them. And it seems like every time I talk to Andy or anybody, another edict has come down from the state. that they have to try to comply with, incorporate into the aspects of reopening. One day you clean this way, one day you clean that way. It's a never-ending barrage of contradicting statements, it seems. So the stuff that goes on behind the scenes is just daunting. And my hat's off, because they've done yeoman jobs trying to balance all that out and still have a town that we have to keep functioning. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I was at the recycling transfer station today, and I was talking to Gordy, and he was recounting some of the less than admirable behavior of some of the residents toward the employees. And I just want to tell people, this is a tough time. Try to be kind with people. I think that the transfer station works well, and now we're up to 4 cars. But it's a tough time, and the employees are doing the best they can do. And I give my thanks to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, so you jumped ahead a little bit further. The next item, if we're done with this one on the agenda, would be the update on Hebron is open for business task force.
Okay.
You can't steal Peter Casper's thunder.
Nope. Okay.
I was getting bummed out that you forgot about me.
No,
No.
we wouldn't.
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Chair, I guess a few minutes for me to update what's happening in this, with what we're doing in the task force.
Perfect.
Yeah, you got your committee named, and
Yeah, I
Remember-
think we made and Andy, if I may, defer to the town office, defer to Donna with, asking her to participate in this update as well. Obviously, this doesn't work without the full support of the town, but if I may ask your permission to defer to Donna for some updates. She's done a terrific job of helping, obviously, reflection of the support we're getting from the town. So thank you for that. Now, I'll ask her to probably add a little bit of color to what I'm going to talk about. Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you. So, so we've had our first 2 meetings. You can see here we established the task force, the 7 people. We tried to create a balance of thinking of, from my perspective, about the business representation, town representation, economic development, that representation, community representation. You'll see AHM and the Board of Ed. So as we think about the forces coming together about how do we drive and support people coming into our business community, reviving our business community, supporting our business community, how do we think about collaborating from a communication perspective? How do we think about all the different constituents that we have in town? So we tried to collect a group that would allow us the best chance to sort of think about it from multiple dimensions. My background is in sales and marketing, so hopefully I'll bring a business acumen and mindset to the task force. But then we look at the skill sets of the other folks. We have a really strong group with a lot of great support from the town. So yes, task force has been created. We've had our first couple of meetings. We have, I think, done a good job of launching a few things right away. So I wanted just to give you, the board, and obviously thank you for all your support in allowing this to happen. A quick update of a few things that have been happening, and maybe ask Donna when I mention those, she can provide a little more context, a little more detail without taking up too much time. But through the support of the town, we do have a budget that's been created, some money that we've been able to use, and maybe Donna, just a little perspective on that and how that came about. That was covered in the Board of Finance meeting last night, but maybe you can just talk to that.
Sure. There were 2 budget items that we had identified, and first was seed money from the town to support the promotion of businesses. There was some money left in the current year's budget in the Economic Development Commission's budget for business promotion that they did not use, and it was about $5,000. And Andy and Elaine did approve using that money for this purpose. So we do have that money that we'll be able to use for supporting the programs. And the second item on budget related was potentially donations or contributions from community members to the task force to support the programs. And we're going to align with the Town Center Project as a 501c3 who can receive funds for that purpose.
One thing, Donna, when we talked about funds, the idea that we're not looking for the public to contribute directly to the businesses, but if there is an opportunity potentially for money to be received to support a community activity, as an example, and those are yet to be established, but it's not money directly to the business community. I don't want to get that confused with some of our earlier discussions about grants or anything like that. This would be money to support a community event, as an example. Again, yet to be defined, but we wanted to be prepared. People have reached out and said, what can I do to help? So at some point that could be something that we have to be prepared for. And obviously there's also an element associated with the finances in the event that we need to also write checks and things like that as part of the process. So there might be, there will be expenses. And so it provides a vehicle, it provides some initial money, it provides some direction in terms of how we think about the money, and then it provides a vehicle in which we can use to account for the money appropriately. So thank you, Donna, for that update. We just a couple of things that we've accomplished quickly. We spent some time the first couple of meetings we're trying to pull all the areas of communication, there's so many different areas of community networking that we have to consolidate. The town has done a good job. They had a great starting point. And then we took the committee to sort of bring all the other social networks and Facebook pages tied to certain entities in town, the community, the parents groups. So we pull all these areas of communication together, thinking about how do we reach the most people possible with consistent messages and with broad reach. And so that was one of the first objectives. And so we have a working list, a pretty significant working list, to be the springboard in which we can then start to communicate with the community more broadly than we do today. So we've been able to accomplish that. We have looked to create a website, and so we have an initial look at a website specifically tied to support the business community and these efforts. Donna, maybe you could just, because you've done a lot of work on that, maybe you could just give a quick update as to what's happening with that and what we've done so far on that. That would be great.
Sure. Initially, we thought we would just add a page to the Town of Hebron's website, but Peter shared a program called Canva, which I jumped into, and it's a very easy to use program that we will be able to share the editing. So we did create, right now it's still in draft form, but we created a website, rather appealing, and it'll cover all the areas that the task force is going to cover. And we hope to get that active within the next week or so. So
the idea there is, short over time, the idea is we want to continue to drive traffic to a central place. We want to continue to have one resource for the businesses. There'll be opportunities for things, resources for the public, resources associated with promoting businesses, sort of a kind of trying to drive activity and communication and access to information more effectively, specific to the businesses, to one central spot. And as Donna said, and it needs to be sort of fluid. So we need a different program that allows us to quickly make changes and to be a little bit more user friendly. And we'll see for those that are wondering the cost, it has 3 different price points depending on the functionality that you're looking to do. And we're still sort of finalizing that, but ranges anywhere from $0 to $19, $19.99 a month. So there isn't really
It'll cost about $120 for 1 year, and it's well worth it. It'll include the DECD certification page. Will list all of the Hebron businesses that have attained certification, links to their websites. It will include short video clips of what the businesses have done to help keep things safe for the community, and some other information on a potential Shops Local program that we will implement.
So a lot of good work in a short period of time, but ultimately thought, sort of long-term, we needed a platform to sort of continue to build out this task, the objectives of the task force in a long-term sort of approach. And so we'll be sure to show the live or the version before we go live to the Board of Selectmen to take a peek at. And then the shops, shopping Hebron, shopping local. So we're going to reinstitute, sort of use the foundation of a program used back in 2011 that the town launched successfully to bring the community and the businesses together, getting to basically, and we still have to flesh out the details, but ultimately, if you go to a certain amount of businesses, you get your card stamped. I think we talked about this during the workshop, and then we'll have gift certificates or drawings for the community, and probably build out something for the kids, sort of a treasure map, thinking about the sort of the play on the Maple Fest, where you have businesses with numbers around town, and so we're building out a really nice idea off a great program back in 2011 for those that remember the term moolah when the town launched that program. Don, what was the name of that program back in 2011?
Hebron Shops Local.
Yeah.
And then the prizes were moolah, Hebron cash or moolah.
But we're not gonna be printing cash anymore, or whatever they had to do before. It'll be a little different than that. Sort of a modernization of what was a great program, and build some coordination again and fun around shopping local. So that program we're going to reinstitute, and we're building that out as we speak. And so, sort of in summary, a lot that's going on in a relatively short period of time. A lot of great connections with the members. Everyone's participating at a high level. I've met with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I connected with Diane Nadeau at the Wyndham Chamber. So we're reaching out to the community, trying to make sure we're not duplicating any efforts and taking full advantage of everything that's available, and bringing all the appropriate people into play that are already doing really good work. And so how do we sort of mobilize together as a community, so to speak, of resources to bring our business and our town's residents together to help drive the viability of our business community going forward. So that's a quick update. Well, maybe not so quick, so I apologize for that. But I just want to make sure you heard a little bit about all the things that have been going on. So, if you have any questions?
No, very impressed. Thank you very, very much.
Fired up about it, so I apologize. I probably took longer than I needed to go through all this stuff. So, thank you very much.
This is John. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and just excellent. Really great. Good work.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, and thank you for your support. And board, obviously, for supporting this initiative. It doesn't happen without the board, and obviously doesn't happen without a great town staff. So got a pretty good team here collectively to make some things happen. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you too, Peter. You come into my home twice a week now with these meetings.
You're welcome, Mark.
Okay. What's our next agenda item?
I think Mel wishes he would have been able to go sooner when John asked and wait all this time, but now it's Mel's turn finally.
No, not really. This was fine. Good education, at any rate. I just wanted to catch you up, the board up to where we are with the project. On the 15th of June, the project was remobilized. The general contractor was in there along with his subcontractors. The old water system was shut down, disconnected, and there was some maintenance done to the tanks that and testing of the tanks to ensure that they do not have any lead residue either in the tank or in the linings of the tank. So that was completed. The system is back up through and or to and through the pump house. The folks came in to do the demolition that's required in terms of removing any asbestos and hazardous materials. There are several containments that have been built, and the actual removal of hazardous materials will begin Monday morning. They are working a 4-day week. Excuse me, a 10-hour 4-day week. So they do not work on Fridays, so that hence they will start on Monday. They anticipate that asbestos abatement will be done within the by next Friday, and then they'll just be waiting for final air test results, so that all these areas are cleared and we can continue to work. The estimate of completion right now is August 1st. They hope to be 100% done and out of there. And let me just hit the financials right now. As you may or may not recall, the project was approved at $1,222,891. At this point in time, with the first change order approved, and the total change order was under less than $10,000, and it was for things such as in the review of the plans, the Department of Health asked that we add 2 additional points for testing. As the bathrooms were being disassembled, for lack of a better word, they found a couple of cracked fixtures, toilets, urinals, that we've decided to replace. One classroom was overlooked for a drinking fountain, and actually we got some credits within that same purchase order for some materials that won't be used. So as I say, that was about I think a $9,200 change order. We have a very small change order that they're working on now. The bottom line is right now, including change order 1, our project estimate is $1,071,000, leaving $151,000 remaining below the budget. We have applied for our first reimbursement, and Elaine informed me yesterday that we had received, was it $183,000 or $187,000 back, which is the 54%.
187,410.
And that will continue as we move along. One thing has come up, and normally we wouldn't come to the town to talk about this and get some feedback, but when the contractor was forced to evacuate, leave, whatever you want to call it, when they were forced to pull out of the building in the middle third week of May, we did have, at the committee's request, have the fire marshal, building official, Randy Blaze, walk through the building with the contractor as well as our clerk of the works, just to review the current condition, because staff was going to be coming in to teaching staff, Board of Education staff was going to be coming in to kind of close up their classrooms for the year, to gather any belongings, personal belongings of theirs, as well as to gather personal belongings of their students. And then they did have a curbside pickup for the parents and the students. Because people were going to be in the building, we wanted to make sure that the building was in suitable condition. When he walked through, all the ceilings were still open, because part of the project was, after they replaced pipes, there are certain areas within a building that are fire rated, meaning they have to be able to hold back a fire for a certain period of time. So all the ceiling tiles were out because the piping, the majority of the piping runs above the drop ceilings. And as the team walked through the building, Randy noticed that there were, I want to say hundreds, because literally there are several hundred penetrations through walls that are fire rated. They have things like venting that goes through them. They have data wiring. They have low voltage cable. They have some old pipes. At any rate, these we worked on this project and spent a lot of time with the contractor ensuring all of the penetrations he made were sealed. Only for the building inspector, fire marshal, to find a lot, and I can't give you the number right now, and I'll explain that in a minute. A lot of penetrations. That's a violation of the health and safety as well as the fire codes. He could, if he wanted to, shut down the building. I mean, I think everybody knows Randy, and he's kind of a straight shooter, and he said, well, these holes have been here for a while. And after talking with Wayne, the foreman for the Board of Education, Wayne said they're likely have been there since the year 2000, because that's when they did the majority of their data wiring, and the majority of the holes are for data wiring. Before you ask the question, no, we have no recourse against the vendors, and we have no ability to determine whether the work was inspected or not inspected. All we know is what we have right now. So we have holes in fire rated spaces that are violating the current code. They are not part of the current project per se. We would like to, for the sake of just finishing it up completely, we would like to be able to seal these holes up and just get the whole thing done. And I have worked with the state. The state will reimburse these, but these are not cheap. And we also have the issue, and I can go in as more or as little as you want, but we also have the issue, because this is a state-funded any project that has to do with that's not new construction and exceeds $100,000, which obviously $1.2 million does, has to be done under Bacon Act, which provides what they call prevailing wage. Prevailing wage is, suffice it to say, significantly higher than normal wages. So in order to, and this is really in place to support union workers and to ensure that the best labor is utilized on these types of jobs. If we were to, and it looks like the cost, and Danny and I had spoken of this earlier, and Dan, since we spoke, I did some more research. The original quote that was given to Wayne, if this was done outside of this project, was $88,000. Under the $100,000, it could be, excuse me, it could be done at a different time, and just the cost of it would be $88,000. And if that was all that was part of it, then it would be under, it would be a project that could be reimbursable and would be less than $100,000, so it would not require prevailing wage. Looking further into this, if we were to do it as a separate project, we would also have to incur the costs of somebody to go through and to identify exactly how many holes, the sizes, come up with the total numbers and total scope of the work. And then we would have to get pricing, which would also have to have, or which we would also insist on having, unit costs in case of, for you that have been involved with these projects before, you probably know that things pop up. No matter how well you look through things, things pop up. So the cost of that, what for lack of a better word, called design, which would have to be done if we were going to look for reimbursement, would be approximately $18,000. Went back to the vendor, the current contractor, and said, "Hey, come on, you got to do better than that." So we got it down to $78,000. So you add the 18 onto the 78, you're still under the $100,000. However, that doesn't include opening and closing the ceilings. So we got a price on that, and it's 2 men, 2 days, and without taking the grids down, just removing all the tiles, which the building inspector has requested to ensure that we get all the holes, that we can seal all the holes. That's about another $8,000 to $9,000 for 2 men, 2 days to remove and then reinstall those tiles. So it puts us up at about $104,000 over the threshold for prevailing wage. The prevailing wage addition onto that would probably take it up another 15,000. So it'd be about 115. They're estimating it would be about 115,000. If we could do this, because I don't like paying prevailing wage if we don't have to, but if we could do this and keep it under $100,000 and still get reimbursed, which we could, if we followed that sequence of events, my recommendation would be wait until next year and do it next summer. The Board of Education really doesn't like that. They don't want to have to deal with ripping the building apart 2 years in a row, which I thoroughly understand, but being the finance guy on the committee, we gotta look at the town's money too. So the bottom line is we would like to move forward with this. And as I said, we have vetted this through the Department of Administrative Services, who manage the state grants. They will reimburse it. So the total cost, if you were to figure the total cost, what ends up being 115,000, 120,000, that would still leave a balance in the budget of $31,000. As I said, normally we wouldn't be looking for any input from the town for change orders. Change orders are a necessary thing, but this is a change order that has, I mean, you'd be reaching to say that this was part of the project. And
Mal.
therefore, we're coming to you saying, what's your preference? Should we do it this year? Should we do it next year? In terms of avoiding prevailing wage, I don't think we're going to be able to avoid it. If we're to do it this year and at the $115,000, that would have to be, and this is through Department of Administrative Service, that would have to be utilizing the current vendors. If we wanted to do it, quote, this year and not use the current vendors, then we would have to add that additional $18,000 I spoke about earlier for the design, and then money for an RFP. Just to give you an idea, we just got the costs for the professional services through the town engineer who helped us do the RFP for the project. That was about $7,000. So, I mean, it just kind of makes sense, in our opinion, that we do it this year. So I'll stop rambling, and I apologize, as Peter did, for the long, involved conversation there. But I'd like to answer any questions and get any input from the board and or anyone else who's on the meeting.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I speak? This is John.
Yes, go ahead.
if it's a health and safety issue and he can shut us down, we have to do it now anyways.
Well, no,
And
John, let's be clear on that. He's not going to shut us down. Yes,
No, but
it
if-
has to be done.
if he's identified it as a health and safety issue,
Yeah.
and we have this project that's a health and safety issue, and we don't complete it this year, and we have, with the expectation of all these parents that have waited years and years and years to get this thing done, to me, it makes sense to get it done now and to have the project complete. And to me, it's a health and safety thing. If that's what the fire marshal's saying, even if he won't shut us down. And the whole idea of mobilizing, demobilizing, ripping up the school again, I don't see it. Let's get it done. Done.
Mark or Peter? Okay, I'll go. I agree with you, John. I agree 100%. The school is apart. Get it done. Lick our wounds. Move on. Get this project done. Heaven forbid, with us knowing that there are issues with fire stops and it's not meeting the 2-hour minimum fire ratings, and that there was something in there and someone were to get hurt or heaven forbid worse, would it be a known liability that we were remiss in mitigating? I agree with John. We need to get it done, lick our wounds, do it. And it's within the budget. It's still within the dollar amount.
Aaron, Peter, Casper.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I would just, this isn't a criticism of Randy or anybody else. I just think of something of this magnitude that has been up in those ceilings for a while, just to back Randy up. I would want the state to come in and give us a second opinion to make sure that that is exactly what we need to do. And it has to be done because of the amount of the cost it's going to be. If Randy's accurate in his assumption, and I just think it doesn't cost any money to have the state look at it as well. That wouldn't slow anything down. I just know from a couple other projects, there was some different opinions on what needed to be done on some firewalls and what didn't, whether they were exactly firewalls or not. And that came from somebody that did work for the state building department.
Who would set that up, Andy?
Randy.
Randy?
Or I could. Yeah, I could talk to Randy about it, and it would only just revalidate what he's saying. It wouldn't slow the project down. It wouldn't, I think they would come right out just to, reinforce what he's saying to make sure that actually needs to be done, because it really wasn't part of the scope.
Would you like me to talk to him, or would you talk to him, or how do you want to proceed with this?
Well, if the board's okay with my suggestion, I could move forward with it. I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I think it's pertinent to have another set of eyes, and they're the regulating authority, especially in a school. I would really want their fingerprints on it as well.
Just so you know, the plans that are being used have been approved by the state twice. The basic plan, and when I say plan, I'm talking about the drawings, come from, was it Lawler that did the 2000 project? I think it was CJ Lawler. And they clearly have the fire rated spaces designated on the plans. So the state has approved these plans in total, which would also include the fire rated spaces. But I mean, have no problem going that extra route. I mean, I think, in fact, that probably, in case anyone were to ask, we've done our due diligence.
Mr. Chairman, Peter Casper, just wanted to
Yeah, go
add
ahead, please.
comments to that. Yeah, I mean, I think that all makes sense, and I'm with John, and obviously you, Dan, as well, because you made comments as well. 100%. I have, the business that I'm in. We deal with huge fires that come. I just had one a couple of years ago. Electrical conduits weren't properly sealed. a $17 million masonry building go to the ground. So I'm very interested in sealing anything like it's safety, it's health and safety. So what we need to do to validate that it's the right scope of the project, I'm for. But I'm with John and we know the issue exists. Those need to be closed, and it has my full attention and support. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
I think you guys covered it all. I didn't understand half of it, so I'm not gonna make a comment.
So
yeah.
I'll just make another, another
Go ahead,
comment.
go ahead, John.
So UConn professor showed up and the EPA project is on a go. They've identified the pipes. You know, they're going to be doing a study. I think they'll come back with also, I hope they come back with a participation sort of science project for the school. So it's all, I mean, this is a first-rate research project that's coming out of EPA Cincinnati. Probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but for me, that was like the gold standard when I was doing environmental consulting. So from from our perspective, we're spending a lot of money. We're the first real school to do this in the state. I'd like to come out of this with, the positive part of this, like this is what Hebron is doing. And this is what we've done with our school and it's an advance and so like I said, let's just get it done so that we can go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think though it would take really any time if the state fire marshal's office would be willing to come out and do the inspection.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just adds another layer of credibility, if you will.
Yep.
I
agree.
I don't want it to interfere with timelines. That would be my only thing, and hopefully they would be able to come out fairly, in a fairly reasonable time frame. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't want to say, well, we can't get there until August.
Right.
Let me just share with you that, and Danny, this goes right along with what you're talking about. Once the ceilings come out and we can go through there, that's when, if the state fire marshal would like to walk through with Randy, with the contractor, with our clerk, that would be a perfect time to do it. And we anticipate that we would be doing that sometime next week. I'm sorry, either the end of next week or the beginning of the following week, because we have insisted that we get a fixed dollar price. We don't want any time and material. We don't want any unit cost. We want them to go through, determine what's there, give us a price. The reason we are required to have a unit cost is for the state, because the state doesn't want to get stuck with gouging if there's stuff that was not identified at the beginning. So they require a unit pricing.
Okay.
So
I think we're in kind of agreement. Andy, if you could kind of make the preliminary contacts to see if that could happen.
Yeah, I'll talk to Randy and make sure he's on board with that. And I could set that up with the state fire marshal's or building inspector's office to come out there.
Perfect. Good.
thank you for your attention, your time, and we'll keep you in the loop if anything else is going on.
I also
Thanks,
want
Mal.
to thank you and Elaine for all of the work that you guys have done straightening out the billing process on that. That was monumental task to get that corrected and properly into the state.
I will make an editorial comment on that. Elaine spent, I don't know how long, but ended up providing over 70 pages of documentation that should have been collected by the Board of Education. And of course, with the transitions that they had in business people, I'll kind of leave it at that. COVID and people not being in the office, it fell back on Elaine, and Elaine did a yeoman's job. This is not part of her responsibility at all. And it's one more reason to continue to try to dialogue in terms of trying to combine finance offices. So my editorial comment, and publicly, thank you, Elaine.
Okay, thank you, Mel. So without further ado, we have some staff waiting patiently to get moving. So if there's no other old business, we can move on to new business, Chairman.
Actually, I just have one, and I'll be quick about some old business. Our resolution last week, which is a great the last meeting was a great resolution. There was, a demonstration on Saturday. What a beautiful day. There were probably about 100 people. It was peaceful. I just want to say something about it because it was, first of all, I met a lot of people, and there were so many good comments about Hebron from people just loving living here and what a wonderful place it is. And but the one thing I want to talk about is a conversation I had with an African American woman. I spent about an hour with her, and she had come to the demonstration. First, she said, and she has lived in Hebron for 40 years, and I won't identify her. So she came in 1980, and she and her husband had a business. They are a senior member of the community. I didn't know her very well, but she graciously availed herself to me, some of her feelings. I said, what did you think about this? She said, well, the first thing I thought was there's not very many people, and I felt bad. But now I see there's a lot of people, and people are honking horns, and that makes me feel better. So that made me feel good because, there was an article in the Journal Inquirer about this being irrelevant, and I don't think it is. But the second thing she told me is that she was making her sign Black Lives Matter in her car, she said, and she started crying. She started crying. She didn't know why, and it was such an emotional time for her. And she said, going over, the incidents. She gave me incidents in which she'd not been treated well. That there'd been racist comments, or kids had endured some racist comments. And this is not, let me tell you, the norm. I'm just saying that over 40 years there were incidents, and there were, some of them were resolved, some were not. And what it told me was even in these, what perhaps as white people we would think is a small incident, they're hurtful. And this woman again is an accepted, I think, a very well accepted member of the community. And I think it made her feel like she wasn't part of the community. Even these say random or small events or whatever, even though she knows that so many people love her and accept her family and all that, and it really it's very emotional to me now. I didn't know. Let me just say, I did not know that. Something I learned in this thing. So I think we have some work and doesn't have to do with whether people are racist or not racist, but I think we have some work to do on welcoming, putting forward ways to welcome people. I mean, the town is, I think 1.1% Black, 4% minority. We lose, I think, some valuable people if they don't want to live here. And I don't want to do it now. I'd like Gail to be here, but at some point in the next meeting or the following meetings, I'll make a proposal on how perhaps we can maybe put forward a task force or something to think of ways to bring more African Americans, or just make it perhaps more welcoming to people. Because I think it would be, not only think it would be good for African Americans, because this is a wonderful place, but I think it'd be good for us as a community. I mean, I think it'd be good all the way around. And, even a small effort like that would be a welcome thing. And like I said, this small demonstration, I think, meant a lot to her. And maybe there are other things we can do to that could make a difference. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so without further ado, the next agenda item stated at 7:45 p.m. is award the town auditor's contract. So thank you, Elaine, for being patient with us, and I will turn it over to you.
Good evening, everybody. So as you know, we had entered last year after going out with formal bid into a 5-year contract with RSM auditing firm. Unfortunately, usually the first year is always very transitional when you switch from one auditing firm to another, as they tend to not only audit the town, but audit the previous auditors' reports, and tying back to their CAFRs when they haven't produced any of the data can be time consuming. RSM had a large changeover and reduction in staff midstream, which resulted in them delaying a few municipalities and conducting their audits by December 31st. And then COVID hit. So long story short, I do have a draft that was submitted late this afternoon to me. I will be perusing that tomorrow for accuracy. Hopefully we should have a final report by the end of next week. That being said, we no longer wish to honor the 5-year contract with RSM. It's also very late in the year. Per OPM's mandates, I should have had the report filed with them as to who our auditing firm was going to be for next year. So I'm already 20 days past the deadline for submission of that information. An RFP would be very time consuming to try and create at this point in time. And then once again, with the wait time, we just don't have the time. I need to start preparing for the 2020 fiscal year end audit right out of the gate. So in conversations with Bloom Shapiro, who has come highly rated, they are also on the Department of Administrative Services bid list. They also audit the state of Connecticut. They are leaps and bounds in their field. Their reputation speaks for itself. So being that they are on the DAS bid list, we could move forward per our purchasing policy with appointing them. The Board of Finance did approve it unanimously at Tuesday night's meeting. Their fee schedule for the next 3 years is not out of line, it's in line with what we would have been paying RSM for the remainder of their contract. So to have appointed somebody just for 1 year, the cost would have probably been double what it is with the breakdown over the 3-year period, because as I stated, It is very time consuming to acclimate themselves, not only with everything that we do here, but in trying to attempt to tie back to the previous fiscal year audit. It's a very time consuming process. I've already had several conversations with Santo Cardo and Vanessa Rosito, who would be heading up our audit. They seem like phenomenal people. They've also guided me in trying to push the 2019 audit forward with appropriate questions and inquiries to make with RSM. So I would very much look forward to working with them. And we just need your blessing.
Okay, Dan Larson, I'm going to read the motion, then we can open it up for discussion. The motion, move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen award the contract for audit services for the town of Hebron and the Hebron Board of Education for years ending June 30th, 2020, 2021, and 2022 to Bloom, Shapiro and Company, PC, in accordance with the bid fee proposal contained in the proposal. 2020 year would be $57,000. The 2021 year would be $59,000. The 2022 year would be $59,000. And authorize Andrew J. Tierney, town manager, to sign any necessary contract documents. Open it up for discussion.
Chairman Peter Casper, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
As the liaison to the Board of Finance, I was at the meeting and have been at previous meetings and have heard this in the detail in which the Board of Finance would have heard it. And I fully support moving forward the detail that's gone into the assessment of making this change. The Board of Finance's review and detailed series of questions around this was not made lightly. And I see it as a necessity, and I wholeheartedly support it. But just since I've been at those meetings too, representing the Board of Selectmen as the liaison, I just wanted to provide that perspective that I wholeheartedly agree with the recommendation and support it as presented.
Jeff.
Thank you, Peter. Go ahead.
That was Mark yelling for Jess.
That was.
John or Mark?
I'm all set.
Yeah, I'm
I
all
was gonna
set.
say,
Shapiro's fine.
Go ahead, John.
No, I defer to other people. Bloom Shapiro's a reputable firm.
Okay, and I was going to say, sadly, we do go out to bids, and we do it with open, competitive companies. Obviously, what we have now is not functioning. There's been all kinds of issues. These are things that are time sensitive, and at this point in time, again, Elaine's been literally her back against the wall trying to get the current company to do their job. I am all in favor of this change, and sadly, it doesn't. It's sad that we can't get some of our money back because we have not gotten the service for the money that we've probably paid. So I definitely support this. But going down the list, Mark, you in favor or against?
I'm in favor. I vote aye.
Okay, John,
Don Collins, aye.
Peter,
Peter Casper, aye.
and Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Moving it right along, we do have a executive session coming up. So next would be the draft agenda for the July 3rd meeting, 2020.
Okay, and again, that's not up, but if anybody has anything to add to it, please try to get it in a timely fashion so that Our next meeting is when, Andy?
I'm sorry, the agenda says July 2nd. Because I have a draft agenda in front of me, but the agenda we're working off, it says July 3rd. So I think it's July 2nd, as Donna just put up on the board.
It is July 2nd is the Thursday, correct?
Okay.
So, again, if anybody has anything to add to it, please get it in a timely fashion so that the town staff has a chance to get together whatever documentation may be necessary. Okay. Okay.
All right. And then it goes to any other new business.
Okay. Hearing none, I believe our next thing is the consent agenda items, which are considered routine in nature. I believe we do have the minutes for May 7th, 2020, regular meeting, the May 28th, 2020 special workshop, the special meeting and workshop, and then the June 4th, 2020 regular meeting, and then the tax refunds as listed. Does anyone have anything that they want pulled or amendments or what have you? Hearing none, all in favor of the following consent agenda items contained therein as if individually adopted. And again, it would be the approval of the May 7th, May 28th, and June 4th meetings as shown on the screen, and the tax refunds. Mark?
I'm good.
John?
John Collins, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And Dan Larson, myself, aye. Liaison reports? Mark?
Just to piggyback off of what Andy said, the graduation was phenomenal. It was both emotional and celebratory. It was 9 hours long. It was really a creative decorating of the cars. Everybody seemed to be really happy. It was the best that we could come up with. There was a lot of planning that went into it, and it really was a success. The board met this week. They had over a $500,000 surplus. So all the departments put in for their needs and wants, and a lot of them got voted down. There was a lot of no's, some yeses. Being a neophyte at this, it doesn't seem fair that you can only carry over like $5,000 of that $500,000 surplus to next year's budget. That although you didn't spend it, you have to find a way to spend it. But that's the way it is, and there was a lot of debate among the members of what was worth spending, what was needed, what was frivolous, and they hammered it out pretty well. I'm not sure if they're done yet. Scott Leslie took over as the superintendent today. There's a great deal of excitement between the teachers, the students, the community, so everybody's looking forward to that. We're forming a back-to-school committee to see how we can do it safely, and there's still no determination from the state. They said they were going to come up with something in the next 2 weeks. Oh, what's that, Andy?
You're good.
Okay. And obviously some of it will be at our own discretion, but what I've been hearing and seeing, it doesn't look good to go back to school for the high school. But we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. And AHM gave a gift bag to every student, which was substantial and full of all kinds of good things. So AHM, as usual, is a huge part of the community. They were present for the whole graduation, and it was great to have them there. I'm done.
Okay, Peter?
Peter Casper, the Board of Finance and the Parks and Rec. I attended the meetings that are had. I think their updates have been covered. Andy covered what Rich and his team is doing in terms of continuing to And the meeting's really focused around the status and transition of the program and services. And Andy provided an update as to some of the openings for Parks and Rec and Board of Finance. A lot of the discussion, again, was addressed around the audit, and we've addressed that already in our meeting. So that's my update. Thank you.
Okay, John.
Mal's gone over the pipe thing. I won't. I have nothing to add to that. The land acquisition. The Open Space Committee will be talking about in the executive session. And what else? Oh, the AHM, the award ceremony. I did go to that. That was great. You know, they did great work there. I mean, they put together that beautiful sign and were able to donate money to the various food pantries. I give Tressa a lot of credit there. That was excellent. That's about it.
Okay, Andy.
Just quickly, the RAM facilities project is well underway. I think so far so good. They hit one change order. There's an irrigation line going from the pump house in the front of the school out to the 316 field that's too shallow, and it's going to be right under the roadway. So we have to move that and bury it at a deeper level. So that was unforeseen. That wasn't on the print when they designed it. So it's going to be a change order. Other than that, I know WPCA is going to continue to meet, and we're going to try to move forward with that project. It's still moving along.
Okay, and with me, it would be the Hebron Historic Properties Commission. They are still moving full steam ahead with the Rosie the Riveter dedication ceremony slated for August. They are still anticipating that event will be taking place. So at this point, the Victory Garden got raked and planted actually this last weekend, and got straw put down. So things are moving along with that, and I believe that's it. So with that, we open it up again for public comment, and then after that, we'll go into executive session. Do we have anything for public comment?
No one has indicated public comment.
Okay, that being said, then we'll go into our executive session.
So, Mr. Chairman, on the executive session, if you'd be so kind, or the board would approve inviting in Michael O'Leary, the town planner, Donna Lanza, the virtual meeting administrator, and myself, the town manager.
I would agree. Those would all be fantastic choices. And unless another board member has issues, I would like to invite in Donna Lanza and attorney and Michael O'Leary. Hearing nothing to the contrary, we are going into our executive session.
Mr. Chair, do we turn the recording off?
At
Executive session?
this time, we're going to ask the guests to leave the meeting. We will turn the recording off and the meeting will be locked. And after executive session is over, we will resume the recording and we will unlock the meeting and people can rejoin if they so wish.
Thank you.